I like to get ready. Um, I like to listen to lectures. I like listening to lectures as I'm getting ready for the day. And a particular one that I favor the most is Terence McKenna. Terence McKenna was a botanist, anthropologist. He studied plants and shamanism, and he was particularly interested in medicinal plants with hallucinogenic properties. And he was a really big advocate for that people need to take mushrooms. Oh. And he had a lot of stories to tell because he took a lot. He had a lot of experiences. Anyway, and so he when he like talks about his lectures, they're mostly about like these topics. I mean, that's all he was talking about, but he would talk about how something very interesting that I don't think I've heard a professional like him speak on that in terms of the evolution of humanity. I think Ram Dass touched on it, but he came at it from a different perspective. Ram Dass was more about the consciousness and like a totality be in the beyond. And Terence McKenna, it's like Terence McKenna is more sci-fi, I guess you could say. I mean, he talked about how he would take these journeys and he would see the elves. It's funny because like in Mexican culture, we believe in something called duendes, which are little elves, but they're not particularly they're very mischievous and they can be a little scary sometimes. So anyway, okay, so Terence McKenna talks about this evolution of humanity. And he's talking about how, like, I remember they interviewed him. I don't know who they was, but he did an interview and he was talking about this turmoil that we're experiencing, the violence, the destruction, the death, the suffering. He said that this is what what did he say? A civilization? A species. This is what a species does right before they take off to the stars. And he spoke a lot about like recognizing ourselves as the alien. And it's funny because I always joke with my mom and I tell her, Mom, what if I told you I'm an alien? Like, what would you say? And she always says like, oh, I don't know. Like, I don't know how I'd react. And I'm like, oh. And then she also has this like, she claims that she believes that aliens are real, but the aliens are already here. And then I just have this like, this brain of mine just makes all of these leaps of conclusions. You know, like Earth, when Earth was created, according to science, it was because there was all this gas and particles and whatnot that came together, and like, you know, they just clumped together and it was bombarded by stuff out in space, because it was just like this soup of stuff with the potential to create life. And life came to be because of the combination of the right environment. Like, if you could imagine, like, the earth is a uterus, and the ovum and the sperm were what came together. Like when plants release their pollen, or the trees or whatever, that's the sperm, right? And the flower that receives the sperm, or the tree, the plant that receives the sperm, is open to receiving it. And so, in a sense, wouldn't you say that we are aliens? Because it was a mixture of a combination of Earth being available to carry the life, and life coming to her, all the ingredients to life coming to her. And so my theory is, we were so interested in finding life outside of Earth, but like, are you not amazed that there is life on Earth? That we are the aliens, and that we're just in a meat suit, the way that an astronaut puts on their space suit to go out into space. Like, this is what we have to wear in order to survive here on Earth. But it is us. We are the aliens. Anyways, that's my wild theory. I do have a story, because like, I also do believe that, like, if aliens are like real, and I do believe that they are, like, they're not like how we think that they are. And like, meaning that it's not just us existing in this in existence. A science talks about how there could be like parallel realities coexisting next to us. And like how Carl Sagan had said, the fourth dimension, you can't perceive it. Like, it's not within our capabilities to see it, but it does interact with us in the same way that, like, our 3D interacts with the second dimension, and so on and so forth. And he describes it like how, if you were a 2-dimensional being, interacting with the 3-dimensional being would be like magic, because to you, if they appeared, it'd be like they just suddenly appeared out of thin air. But they didn't, because they exist in 3D, and in the 3D you can perceive the 2D, but the 2D can't perceive the 3D. And so these aliens that we wish to meet, they exist on a dimension that we cannot see, but we can interact. And here comes my story. And just to preface this by saying that I was tripping balls on all of these occasions, because I was experimenting, and I wanted to have a complete and thorough understanding of life and my mind and the overall human experience. The first experience I had, I was sober, actually. And I've already talked about this story. I was sober. It felt like a dream. But it was this immense light that came to my room. But it was like outside. And like, the light was so bright, it penetrated through my blinds that were closed, penetrated my eyelids that were closed, and it felt like an absolute most luminous white. And then with it came this sound, like mechanical but not our sort of mechanics, because it was very ethereal, very light, but incredibly loud, where I felt the vibration of that sound through my whole body. And I was like, oh my God, like I got scared. I was like, I'm about to get kidnapped. And then I woke up. So that one was a little strange. The second time, I was at the beach tripping balls, and I looked up at the sky, and the entire sky, even though like there was clouds, like the clouds parted, and in the night sky I saw many red dots, but they were all perfectly aligned, and they covered the sky. It was like almost like if they were eyes, but they were red dots everywhere. And these dots came together, or they sort of morphed to reveal an enormous humanoid shape in the sky. It had no features. It was just, you could see the outline of their body, like, you know, this is the head and the shoulders, and that's all I could see. And I was just amazed of seeing this, because I'm like, what? Like, what's going on? And I was at the beach next to the LAX, but I was not aware of that. And so then I remember that it came suddenly, like faintly, and it grew in the middle of this figure's forehead. So like around right here, this light, this brilliant light started to grow. And I'm like, holy shit. And like it got bigger and bigger and bigger until it started coming towards me, and it was an airplane. But that's a whole nother story. Then I freaked out because I thought I was gonna die. But anyway, the next encounter, I guess, or experience was I was in my room tripping balls, and I was not having a good time. I was not. It was intense, and it was not a good time. And I remember I was nearing the end of this journey. Like everything was mellowing out, and I remember laying down on my side, and my left ear was on my pillow, and I could hear this buzzing sound in my ear. And I remember I had my phone on. I was playing music. It was this like ambient music by like a Japanese dude. I don't remember his name, but it had no words. It was just the music itself. It was very relaxing. And I don't pay for YouTube Premium, so I get the commercials. And I remember like the music was playing, and then all of a sudden the music stopped, and it sounded like it was a commercial, but it wasn't, because it was almost like and I only know this because I watch movies, you know, and like when someone's talking like on a walkie or like receiving a message or something, there's like this interference, like a staticky sound. And then a message came through, and I'm like, you know, I'm like just there. I'm not feeling any sort of way, because I'm finally feeling at peace. And so I'm just there, like just experiencing the experience. And like this voice that came through sounded very like it was automated, but not really. Like if you took a bunch of videos and put them together to use words, specific words from each video to make the sentences. Does that make sense? Like how maybe like if you put certain clips together to stitch them together to create a sentence that it didn't really say, like you put it together to make it sound that way. That's what it sounded like. And I just remember like laying there and listening, and I'm like, hold on, this is not like a regular video on YouTube. And it was saying something like the only things I can remember it saying was something about being ready, so that it was ready. Oh my god, I can't believe I forgot. Something about a portal and open and being ready. And then I kid you not, at the end of it, it said transmission over. I fucking kid you not. Was it the stuff that I'd consumed? Maybe. I don't know. And then I remember like, oh, and then it also said ready for liftoff. And then at that exact moment, my motherfucking AC turned on, and it sounded like I was like in a fucking rocket ship about to launch into space. Like, it was so fucking strange. And it just reminded me about how Terrence talks about these sorts of encounters while he was on the shrooms, of speaking to entities and them revealing information to him. And that's how he would talk about like this evolution of the species, of departing into the stars. And you know, even Jesus Christ talked about that, about that. He didn't say like we're gonna depart to the stars, but of being Christ-like. My foot's falling asleep. Being Christ-like. What is flesh and bones cannot enter the kingdom of my Father, is what he said. So, if not the body, then it's the soul, is it not? And what is the soul? Science still can't identify like where the soul is located, the consciousness, the awareness. And it won't be identified, because it would be like an astronaut wearing a spacesuit and then somebody coming and saying like, you're the spacesuit. And the astronaut's like, no, I'm not the spacesuit. That's silly. I'm just wearing the spacesuit. So anyway, I just wanted to jump on here and talk about that, because I was thinking about aliens last night. I don't know. And then I remember, what was it, last year, that an alien crashed at the outskirts of Vegas. Like, you know, there was videos, and there are strange things. Like, I'm not saying that like the gray aliens are not real, you know, something must exist out there, because why wouldn't it? If it can, then why wouldn't it? The universe is like that, where it carries the potential for anything, and so it will. And that's all I have to say. I will continue to be here. If I receive any other messages, I'll be sure to share them with you guys, whoever is on the other side of the screen. You know, maybe you've had an encounter of sorts that has a more visceral, physical perspective. And you know, I'd like to hear it. I want to know. I don't get scared anymore. I don't like people talk about like demonic possessions and shit like that. Like, that shit doesn't scare me. I sit in the dark and like I stood in the dark.